this next section we're going to be covering is education and research. I think that this is personally the most important section. This is where you're going to be learning all the information. This is where you're going to be immersing yourself in a lot of info and communities and kind of finding out what's going on and kind of finding the pulse of the crypto market. And it's going to be a lot of the information that's going to be influencing your trades going forward. So to start off, knowledge is definitely power in this space. That's kind of a very cliche statement again, but it really is kind of fundamental to this marketplace. I know a lot of individuals who are kind of cozy with certain teams. They have inside information. They're kind of helping with ICO or a particular platform, and you really get actionable information from the individuals that you know. And it is very, very beneficial to know what's going on in the market before it happens. It's kind of a wild west there. There are almost no laws or regulations once you are in crypto. Like I said, inside information is not inside, it's just information in general. There's no rule against it. It's a completely unregulated market. So if you have inside information, this is actionable information that can make you a significant amount of money. I kind of addressed this briefly before, but I think it's worth reiterating that there's no right or wrong method. But you do need a method in trading. A lot of people kind of go in haphazardly. They're not really sure, what they want to do. They just want to throw some money in. They want to make a ton of money. They're not really sure what that kind of number is, what a ton of money, what kind of enough is, or what they'll be happy with. So it's kind of important that you go into it knowing that. That being said, we're going to go over a lot of the places where you can find information, where you can kind of base your trading techniques, your styles, your entries, your exits. And it's going to be a lot of information. I know that every day I spend a significant amount of time going over all of this information. In the advanced course, we are going to go over a lot more details and specifics. We're going to walk you through a lot of that information. It's going to be very consolidated and to kind of sift it into bite-sized pieces. That being said, that's kind of the advanced portion. That's if you don't have a ton of time. That's if you want to get a real quick crash course and you want to get into it and you want to get up to a high level very quickly. We don't really think it's necessarily in a space. A lot of us here, we've gotten into trading. We've kind of learned the hard way. We've spent tons of hours, tons of time sifting through this information and kind of came up with this combination of all our trading techniques and best practices for finding this information. So it is possible to do it on your own. This intro course, what we really want to focus on is, like I said, giving you all these resources that you need, giving you all of these links, giving you all these kind of platforms, all these ways of getting this disseminated information so that you can create your own trading techniques, so that you can make profitable trades. But it really does take a lot of work and effort. So know that going into this, unless you're kind of signing up for something that you're kind of paying for someone to digest this information for you, be prepared to spend a significant amount of time. Attention to detail is really necessary to kind of do well in this marketplace, just because of the fast-paced nature of it. And at the end, I just really want to say that it's really important that you immerse yourself in some kind of community. You really have to be kind of on the ball with these things. Things change so quickly. You could be looking at an ICO and all of a sudden they change the way that you have to kind of send the money. They change the platform that they're going to be accepting certain crypto for their raise from. Something bad could happen, that you hear through a Telegram or a Slack chat before the actual market hears it. And you being able to either buy that crypto or sell that crypto could mean the difference between 10, 20, 30, 50% losses or gains. So just being immersed, being accessible, knowing where to find that information, and having a community that can help digest that information for you so you don't have to read everything. Because it really is not possible for you to read everything or to be everywhere at once. So finding that kind of community wherever it may be. I'm going to offer a few suggestions for platforms that may be beneficial for you. Take them for what they are. I'll kind of give you, the cost benefit, kind of the benefits, the detriments of each platform, and you'll kind of see what works best for you. What's the easiest place for you to kind of gain that knowledge required. The first one that I'm going to start with is Reddit. A lot of the information in the early days kind of started here. That being said, there is a ton of noise. There's so many different posts. There's so many different comments. You really have no way of kind of knowing who knows what they're talking about. But it can offer valuable insights. A lot of people like Reddit because people can upvote, downvote. So it's depending on upvotes and downvotes, or depending on how the sorting is, you can kind of see some of this information rise to the top. That being said, you really have to be aware of each subreddit's bias. It can kind of be a challenge. I think a really good example is Reddit Bitcoin versus Reddit BTC. Not going to get into too much of the drama. We are in the advanced course going to talk about some of the scaling drama, some of the actual like fundamental issues, or some of the fundamental changes or roadmaps of some of these large cryptos, such as Bitcoin, which is very relevant at this moment. A lot going on that I think is important to cover. Definitely look up the scaling debate if you don't take the advanced course, because it's going to be very important in the coming months for the price of crypto in general, especially Bitcoin. But that being said, there's Bitcoin and then BTC subreddits, and each of them have this very kind of dug in, belief of how they think it should solve some problems in Bitcoin's kind of protocol. But in that, you kind of get, some of them have censoring, some of them upvote and downvote only things that they agree with. There's a lot of infighting, and you kind of create this echo chamber. So like any community, it's kind of created of a composite of all of its members. So just be very cognizant of what those members are and kind of what the bias or what that echo chamber is kind of perpetuating when you go there. I also think that it's interesting. Most major coins and even ICOs will often have their own subreddits. So if you don't have a ton of time, I think it's great if you just bookmark. You have like one of the ICO subreddits, or you have a major coin subreddit, and you can kind of check that every 1 or 2 days. It's not going to be the most efficient manner. Like I said, it's also going to be noisy. It might also be slightly biased. But anything kind of major in the space, anything major happening with that coin or ICO, will probably be at the top of the subreddit. So that's definitely a valuable place to get information kind of quickly, get the broad strokes, if you will. The next one I'm going to discuss is Bitcoin Talk. This is a very, very old platform. This is where a lot of crypto history was kind of made. That being said, it is kind of an old style forum setting. Like I said on the slide, it's probably the least efficient method for collecting information that I'm going to present to you today. There's just so much noise because it is that forum style. You can go to a popular post and it can have hundreds and hundreds of comments, and you just have to sift through them, and so many of them are just very, very, very much worthless. They're really not valuable. But in those, a lot of times you can have these deep discussions with these developers. You can kind of see these hashing out some issues, asking questions, kind of getting them addressed by the community at large. And it really is a very active community, a very knowledgeable community as well. So that could be beneficial if you have the time to sift through that. That being said, a lot of people don't have time to kind of read through hundreds and hundreds of pages of information. So as far as sourcing, actual actionable information, it might not be efficient or your best choice. But I do think what is interesting is that almost all ICOs and kind of like new protocols and coins and all of that are often announced on Bitcoin Talk. So if you're kind of looking to get in the ground floor on something new, if you want to make a very speculative investment, if you want to stay abreast of what's coming next, a lot of times that can be a great resource for you. You can go to alternate crypto and then kind of the subcategories of discussion or announcements. Announcements especially, a lot of people will kind of announce that they're going to be creating a coin, or kind of discuss new and up and coming coins. So if you sift through there, it could be some valuable insights, and you can get some early information on kind of what is coming next. The next platform I'm going to discuss is Slack. A lot of the community has shifted to Slack. It just really is kind of an efficient means of communicating. There's different channels. You can kind of go on there. Everyone kind of can communicate. It really is like a messenger. It's kind of compartmentalized into different sections. Most have kind of announcements, general. Some of them have more like a protocol level discussion. Some will have more developer centric. So depending on how kind of organized their Slack is, it can be a great place to kind of find these sub communities depending on what you're interested in for that coin. A lot of them are, have very active communities. Some of them, if you get in early, will only have 50, 100 members. Some have thousands. So it really depends on what you're looking for. The challenge of that is that most of these Slacks, they don't want to pay for the full version of it. So most of them have a 10,000 message limit. That being said, if you have 4,000 or 5,000 members, you can see how quickly that kind of cycles. And then what happens with those messages is they just are not accessible. So if you're looking to kind of scroll through a channel and just read back months and months and months and see discussion on that platform, it's just really not possible. So as far as archiving and finding all that information and going back in the past, it's not that great. What I do like about it is a lot of announcements will be made from there. They'll be made on the Slack channels, and you can kind of see that very quickly. A lot of times that'll be the first place that it goes out. Even before Twitter oftentimes, which I'll be discussing shortly. But it is a really great place to kind of get very quick information. And I think for the most important thing is that it's a great place to get involved in the community. I think what I love about it so much is that you can really start talking to the core devs. Like, you can talk to the founders. Most people are extremely accessible on there. A lot of people might have like a long turnaround time depending on how busy they are, how close they are to launch, what's going on. But it's just really been amazing, the fact that I've been able to join some of these ICOs, I've been able to join some of these newer coins, and just have these long, in-depth discussions about the platform with the people who actually wrote the code. The accessibility, I think, is really everything. That being said, I think there's something to kind of pay attention to, is that so much of crypto is so community-centric. If you really engage yourself in the community, if you're involved, if you're kind of like talking, like actively trying to learn about that, it's very easy to notice. I've been very interested in a few coins, gotten involved, kind of reached out to the founders, actually had discussions. When new people came in, I helped them out, helped them with basic issues that I had learned and kind of paid it forward, all the information they'd given me. And then later on, I get a PM saying, hey, this is going on, or this is about to happen, or, maybe do you want to help us with some research on the platform? And then, possibly you could get a pre-sale allotment. So it is such a small, tight-knit community that a lot of individuals for these new platforms really appreciate you helping. So if you get involved, you might see that, maybe you get some inside information, maybe you kind of like learn things before other people do. Just kind of, getting in cozy with the founders, getting in cozy with the people making decisions is definitely a good idea if you think it's a very cool project. That being said, I really, I'm not like telling you to kind of go in and just play the game to get information and just kind of do that. But I think the biggest thing here is that you should really get involved in these communities that you're passionate about, and it can pay dividends. It can be rewarding. Even if it's not necessarily on trading advice, getting involved in something in the ground up is a huge opportunity in crypto, and a lot of passionate people have done that. Last, I said join Blockchain at Berkeley Slack. We are a pretty growing community. I think we have almost 800 individuals on our Slack. We are going to be making a separate Slack just for this course, actually. So we're going to put the link at the end of it. There's going to be a short quiz you can fill out, get your email. We're going to send you an invite. For those individuals who choose to take the advanced course, we are going to have few separate private Slack channels in there that have much quicker response time, a lot more help. Because obviously those individuals might be slightly more involved in the trading process than somebody who just kind of has a cursory interest and wants to take a brief intro class. So if you're interested in that, I highly suggest it. We will be sending those invites out, so be sure to fill that out and join the community. Kind of lastly, we're going to go over Twitter and Telegram. So as the market has kind of progressed from Bitcoin talk, general forums, to kind of more Slack, where it's instant discussion and private messages, Twitter and Telegram have very much taken off as well. I think it's kind of worth mentioning that Telegram, a lot of communities that have been using Slack have started to move to Telegram, just because there are some issues with the paid Slacks and kind of the growing communities. So there are a lot of valuable Telegram communities out there that are popping up. If you get involved in the space, sometimes you'll meet people, you'll get invites. That's another reason why you should be involved in the community. It's because if you're actively trading, if somebody likes your trading technique, or just generally likes you as an individual, sometimes you'll get invited to these channels and find some very valuable information. You'll find kind of a trading community that kind of fosters that engagement and that communication between each other, and it can be really beneficial. Like I said, being able to have multiple brains, multiple eyes kind of on this content can be really valuable than kind of doing it alone. Twitter, I think, is a really excellent resource to stay on top of news. It's a good way of aggregating content, not having to read through pages and pages and pages. It's little bite-sized tweets. If you kind of follow many traders, industry professionals, and news outlets, they deliver some really great content in a really easily accessible and kind of maintainable way. We actually have this link on our Twitter with one of the individuals who's helping with this, Clay, kind of consolidated on his account, and you can go through and kind of add all those individuals. We think it's a really good kind of aggregate of, like we mentioned before, those industry professionals, traders, and news outlets. So it's a great base to kind of get you started. Let me preface it with saying that it doesn't necessarily mean they know what they're talking about. It doesn't necessarily mean that we condone what they say, or kind of what their trading techniques, their styles, or their general understandings of technicals or anything else other than that. But we do think it's a good aggregate to kind of get your Twitter kind of going with all that information. So you can definitely add all of those different resources, see what you think about them, and maybe see that some of them agree with your trading technique more so than others. So it's definitely a good starting place, and you can definitely add more people who you can relate to.